Hi, I'm Pam Guidry-Vollers. I am the president of the Board of Governors for the Durham Savoyards Limited. Welcome to my Prez Says segment for this week, where today we'll be talking about the anatomy of an Act 1 finale, specifically as it occurs in a Gilbert and Sullivan operetta. Now, over the last 3 weeks, we have posted episodes of our virtual Patience production, and since the next episode will be the Act 1 finale, we thought it only seemed fitting that we give you a little bit of guidance prior to sharing that episode because, well, as you may already know, the main difference between an opera and an operetta is that an opera is completely sung, where an operetta has some spoken scenes between the songs to help the story along. Now, up until now, you've seen that difference very clearly, but the Act 1 finale is completely sung, and it comprises 56 of the 193 pages in the G. Schirmer edition of the vocal score that we're using for this production. That's an awful lot of story to present completely set to music, but have no fear. Gilbert and Sullivan were nothing if not predictable, and every one of their 14 operettas followed a strict formula to tell their stories. That means, without giving away any of the story, for those of you who are watching Patience for the first time, I can give you a simple way of following along during the finale next week. So here we go. The first requirement for the Act 1 finale is the setup. Last week's episode, you saw that setup. It usually comes in the song and or scenes right before that finale. So in last week's episode, you saw Patience having a conversation with Bunthorne in which he professed his undying love for her, and she roundly rejected him. And then you saw her having a conversation with Grosvenor in which he professed his love for her, and she rejected him as well, but not quite as forcefully as she did Bunthorne. So that's our setup. Now, this setup leads to the next point. Get everyone on stage. You see, the finale requires that every character in the production be on stage and present to help tell the story. But they need a reason to be there. So for Gilbert and Sullivan, that reason could be a wedding, a funeral, an execution, an arrest, setting a curse, breaking a curse, or any combination of several of these things. And it doesn't take much to get these townspeople to gather in one spot. But then there has to be a reason for them to stay there. For what ends up being a quarter of the operetta. So this is the reason for another strong portion of a Gilbert and Sullivan Act 1 finale. True love requited, then unrequited, then requited again, maybe. Usually this starts with 2 or 3 of the principals. We saw some teasers for that last week's episode where a couple of people were professing their love. So that carries over into the finale. And usually the chorus then gets involved. Sometimes it's just the chorus mirroring what they're seeing in the principals as a way to emphasize the point. Other times the decisions made by the principals about that change in life actually changes the direction of the chorus's reaction. Now, the audience may get a bit dizzy trying to follow the decisions of the chorus members because the choruses tend to be pretty fickle and can change direction in a drop of a hat without much coaxing. But typically, somewhere in the middle of that finale, there will be this beautiful melody with these soaring harmonies. And it gives a bit of a break from the dizziness created by these changing directions. Now, it's done purposely in the middle because then it's bookended by the chaotic or the higher upbeat pieces, which makes it stand out more and makes it more beautiful. Sometimes they involve just a solo or a few of the principals starting out, but usually you end up with the entire chorus involved in some way, and you have sparse or no accompaniment whatsoever, so the voices carry that beauty, and it gives you sort of a peace in the midst of that storm. you don't get to have that peace for very long, because the final section of the finale is the ultimate cliffhanger. So, you've had your, I don't know what to do, everybody's changing directions. You've had your, oh, this is so beautiful, seems like things are going to work out okay, everything's going to resolve, and then something changes. The resolution you were expecting didn't happen. There's an unintended consequence or an unexpected conflict that comes up. And this cliffhanger is what makes the audience want to come back after intermission, because the entire town, village, community that they've been watching for the last 56 pages is thrown into chaos as the curtain drops. And the audience just has no idea how these characters could possibly unravel this web they have just spent all that time weaving. And there you have it. The Anatomy of a Gilbert and Sullivan Act 1 finale. So check back with us next week for episode 4, where you'll see if you can spot each of these points that I've made that should show up if you were paying attention. But before you go today, please keep in mind that this virtual production of Patience, while a labor of love, also has a cost. 2020 and 2021 have not been good years for groups in the arts community. They've been very hard, not only because we miss performing in person for you, our audience, but also because we haven't received any ticket revenues from any events for 2 years. Now, as a nonprofit organization, that doesn't mean that we don't need to make money. It means that we need income to pay for what we are putting out. These ticket revenues that we have not gotten cover our year-round costs for our facilities and the people who maintain our stock items for our costume and set pieces. But they also help funding the work that you're watching, work of the people that make the production happen, the directors, the designers, the producers, and cover the cost of any of the materials that are used to create the worlds that you're watching. In light of this need, we are hosting a fundraising campaign we've decided to call Pay for Patience. And the goal is for us to raise the $15,000 that is required to pay for such a production to happen. So please, click the donate button you see here, follow the bit.ly link that you see down in the video description, and make sure that you share on all of your social media accounts and across your email listservs that you may be part of. This bit.ly link ties to our PayPal Giving Fund page, which means that we get every single penny you donate at that link. But also, every donation is completely tax deductible, since the Durham Savvy Arts Limited is a 501c3 organization. So please, help us out, give what you can, continue to check back with us, follow us on YouTube, make sure you click the little bell so that you get the notifications when we post a new video. And thanks for coming to my Prez Says segment this week, and as always, hail poetry.